This next speaker is a great friend of not only myself, but our family. Dave Baker is leading the Pro Football Hall of Fame with the mission of honoring the heroes of the game, preserve its history, protect its values, and celebrate excellence everywhere. With that being said, in that mission statement, they are focusing, by the leadership of Mr. Baker, on focusing on 5 character traits: commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. You know, the exciting thing for me being a part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as that under the leadership of Dave Baker, a lot of our programs have been expanded nationally, nationwide. You'll notice when he comes up here, not only is he big in stature, but he's got an even bigger heart. Big vision, but he's getting it done with his staff. Dave Baker is an attorney by trade. He played some college and pro basketball. Pretty diverse background. He's also been a mayor and a councilman out in California. Please give a big round of applause for my friend and your new friend, President of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Dave Baker.
Love you, man. Love you. Thank you. Love this guy. He is a great man. And what does it take for you to be great? All of you are leaders, which is why you're here. And, you know, I'm here because I'm in the football business. My job is to honor people like that and what he does. You know, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, if Walt Disney said he has the happiest place on earth, at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we like to think we have the most inspiring place on earth. You know, this picture right here, it hangs in my office. Our job is to take all the great values that made Damani Dawson the great Hall of Fame center of the Pittsburgh Steelers and push them into that next generation of young men and young women. And that's all of you. How can you become great? How can you have an impact? How can you make a difference? You know, every day at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, there are people who come there that have cancer or some other, sickness, and they're terminally ill. And for whatever reason, they want to come to the Pro Football Hall of Fame before they die. And really, it's a special place because we celebrate greatness. As Anthony mentioned, our mission at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game like himself, to preserve its history, which is almost 100 years old now, to promote the values of the game and everything you learn in the game, and to celebrate excellence. He mentioned our values, commitment, and this is the great Kellen Winslow, who made 19 catches in that game. He had to be carried from the field, when the game was over because he had nothing left. And that's what you want to do in life. You want to give it everything. Integrity, the officiating, the rules, the manner in which you play, the manner in which you train. There's great integrity in this game, the courage. This is the great Marion Motley, who is from Ohio, Canton-McKinley High School. He reintegrated the NFL in 1946, 2 years before a guy named Jackie Robinson did it in baseball. It's also about respect. Guys these days make a lot of money playing football. Guys like Anthony and other guys, have paved the way for them. But what they really play for is respect. And I know what you want is to be respected. So what does it take to be respected? And finally, excellence. Excellence in our business is not pristine. It's not pretty. It's snot coming out of your nose. It's blood. It's dirt. It's sweat. But it's carrying other people with you to victory. And that's what you can do as a leader. Our vision for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, therefore, is that it's not really about the past. It's really about the future. It's about you. And that's why I'm so excited and honored that Anthony and Michael and Dee Dee would have me here with you today. It's all about you. It's not just about Canton, Ohio. It's about taking this message to Cincinnati and the rest of the world. And it's not just a great museum for football, it's this incredible message of excellence. What does it take to be excellence and make a difference? So, this is a little bit about what it takes to be in the Hall of Fame. Let me tell you about Anthony Munoz and how special he is, not just as a man, but also as a football player. To make it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame is the highest honor in all of sports. You see, we have 48 elite selectors, guys like, Peter King from Sports Illustrated or John Clayton from ESPN. They work all year long to pick who's going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, maybe 4 to 8 guys every year. And of that amount, you've got to be elected by 80%. So what that means is all of you have played a little football, maybe on Thanksgiving, maybe at the park, maybe on your high school team. But of the over 100 million people that have played football, there's only 2.2 million that play it in college. There's only 27,000 that have ever been paid to play it, coach it, officiate it, or administer it in the National Football League. Only 27,000. And of that amount, there's only 303 that have a bronze bust that I'm told will last for 40,000 years in Canton, Ohio, like Anthony Munoz. And of that amount, there's only 171 gold jackets who are living today as Hall of Famers. So you're in the presence of one of the 171 living Hall of Famers here, of the hundreds of millions of guys that have played that game when you're with Anthony Munoz. And so what I wanted to talk to you about today is not only one purpose, one impact, but how your one purpose and one impact can impact a team. The concept of team is that together, everyone achieves more. And you can be part of that team, and you too can have a Hall of Fame life. Even though you might not play in the NFL, even though you might not make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, how can you be a Hall of Fame mother, a Hall of Fame father, a Hall of Fame leader, a Hall of Fame businesswoman? How can you make a Hall of Fame community? How can you make a Hall of Fame country? Well, number one, if you look at those values, you can be committed. It takes somebody who's a believer. And a commitment is a unique thing because, yes, you're an individual. But there's this strange thing that happens when you join a team, when you go out for the team, is that by giving yourself away to a community of others, you actually become more relevant, not less. You're not becoming less, but if you choose something to believe in that really matters, that can really make a difference, you become a bigger part of it than just yourself. So what you need to do is be a believer. But you've also got to really search and find what is it that you believe in? What is it that you believe in your faith? What is your cause? What is the team that you're going to be on? And that's a critically important choice because when you are at your age right now, there's 3 big signposts. Who's going to be your master? Who's going to be your mate in life? And what's going to be your mission? And you need to find somebody who believes what you believe and is committed to what you're committed to. Your family will be the greatest team you ever play on, I promise you. The second thing is integrity. And that means to grow every day, to learn, to be enlightened, to be with people who are different than you. And if you grow every day, I promise you that your business, your money, everything else in life, it'll take care of itself. But you need to be committed to personal growth. I had a secretary when I was commissioner of the Arena Football League. And I used to think that if my secretary, was growing, my business was growing. And that's true of every employee. Well, today, she's the senior vice president of sponsorship at the National Football League. She just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. She's responsible for $1 billion worth of revenue. And I'll tell you, she was a believer. She was committed to growing. but she wasn't any more talented than you. You can do this. The third thing is to have the courage to be committed, to grow. You know, get on the team, get in the game, and make a difference. Sometimes today, people are afraid of failing, and there's no shame in losing. But be a competitor. There's only a shame in not competing. And when you compete, try to compete at the highest level. And so what if you lose? Because you're growing. You're going to come back and get better. Anthony Munoz lost some games, and he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because he competed. He was on the team. He was in the game. He wanted to make a difference with his life. You know, the next one is respect. And you know, you probably don't talk about trust and love too much at your school, but you should. I promise you, it is the most important thing in life. And if you don't think it's important in football, you're wrong. Because my son was a left tackle for the Atlanta Falcons, just like Anthony. And when you're a left tackle, you have to trust the right tackle that's 4 positions away from you is reading the defense the same way you are. The quarterback has to trust, the receiver read the same route. And if each guy shaves a millisecond off of his performance because of trust, all of a sudden magic happens. There's a touchdown if you're on offense or a turnover and you're on defense. And finally, the concept of excellence. Vince Lombardi, the great coach for the Green Bay Packers, Hall of Fame coach, said that you can never achieve perfection. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not going to be perfect. But he said if you passionately chase perfection, you might just capture excellence. And that's what you want to do. You want to be passionate about chasing perfection in everything you do. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. This is a quote that has meant a lot to me. It is President Teddy Roosevelt. Because today in a world of social media, everybody's a critic. Everybody has an opinion. And a lot of times it's anonymous. But Teddy Roosevelt said, it's not the critic who counts, or how the strong man stumbled and fell, or whether the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man or woman who was actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself or herself in a worthy cause, who at the very best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who shall never know either victory or defeat. In your life, dare greatly. In your work, dare greatly. Passionately want to be more. And let me share with you, if I could, just how this works. Martin Luther King, you've all studied. He has a famous quote when he said, I have a dream. I have a dream that someday my 4 children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That you're not measured by 6'9" and 380 pounds. You're measured by your heart. You're measured by your character. Let me show you how this worked in my family. My dad was a guy from Mississippi. He never went to school. He never had the chance to learn how to read or write. So when I brought home an African teammate one time and wanted to bring him into the house for dinner, I'm sorry to say that my dad wouldn't let him in the house. And that was a hard day for me, a very hard day. And I don't want you to think bad of my dad. My dad was the hardest working man I ever have known. And he was a loving man. But he grew up in Mississippi in a different time, in a different place where this just wasn't done. Let me introduce you to my son. This is my son, Sammy, who played for the Falcons. That's his wife, Antoinette. She is a beautiful and lovely and cherished African-American young woman. And now I want to introduce you to my grandson. This is Gunnar. With all due respect to Anthony and Dee Dee and their kids, he is the greatest kid in the world, I'll tell you. He's an interracial child. He's the product of Sam and Antoinette's love. So what happened between my dad and Gunnar? Can you imagine that journey? From not letting somebody in the house to having your heart go to a young child like that. What it was football. I kid you not. You see, my son was in a game against Notre Dame. They call it the Reggie Bush push game. Into the game, Matt Leinart was the quarterback, and he had the ball. And you guys may not have been around to watch it then, but 1 yard for a touchdown. He couldn't quite make it. He got stopped. He turned around. He turned to his left, and as he came over this way, halfback Reggie Bush pushed him over the big tail of a left tackle. Looked a lot like this, okay? That was my boy. 2 years later, he was playing in the national championship game against Texas, and at the end of the game, it was 4th and 2, and they decided to go for it to run out the clock, and they came up 1 yard short, and they lost the national championship. You see, to my son, he measures a man or woman's character by whether or not you can get that 1 yard. The game of football is divided into yards. It's all about character. And if you can help me get that yard, it doesn't matter what color you are, where you came from, how much money your parents have, what your gender is. It only matters if we have one purpose and one impact. Can we get that yard? This game is a great game. And I think the greatest day was a day that some of you were old enough to understand, perhaps, and that was 9/11. I happened to be in New York during 9/11. And when this happened, I was living on the 34th floor, and I could overlook downtown. And at 8:42 in the morning, I couldn't quite see Tower 2 fall, but I could see all the debris rise up. And I remember how our nation was paralyzed and how that great city was stunned. And the next week we didn't play football in the NFL because, frankly, there were things more important than football at the time. But the following week was the greatest day in the history of this game. In every stadium with 100,000 people there and millions more watching on TV, it became a church or a cathedral or a temple where our nation could really come together and hold hands. And a place that is sometimes so divided because of politics or other issues, we were one purpose, one impact together. And we began to heal. And we started getting our bearings, and we got to our feet again. So much so that 10 years later, we held a Super Bowl in that very same city to tell the whole world that, hey, you can knock us down, but you will never knock us out. I went from that event about a year later, and I had two of my friends, one of our Hall of Famers, John Elway and John Bon Jovi, with me. And we were going to go to Walter Reed Hospital. And I saw what this game could do. And at the last moment, those two guys had to cancel. And it was a concern to me because, I'm not a Hall of Famer and, I'm not a rock star. I'm just a 400-pound guy in a suit. But I was commissioner of the Arena Football League, so my name was on the ball. And so we started giving out balls to these guys who were coming back from Afghanistan who were amputees. And it was one of those situations where I will tell you, I met a young man who was missing his arm at his right shoulder. And he was missing his right leg right at his thigh. So he looked kind of unusual. And when I gave him that ball, he just cheered up. He talked about all the lessons he'd learned from football and how he was going to need them now. He talked about his team and how his team and his teammates meant so much to him. And his mother was in a rocking chair behind him there, and being a father myself, I turned to her and I said, "Ma'am, thank you for the sacrifice that your son has made for me and my family." And I added, "I'm so sorry." And she put me in my place just like that. She said, "Oh, you mean this? Don't you worry about that. He's been knocked down before and he knows how to get up." And then she smiled and said with the greatest of confidence, "I know he will." Those are the values of courage, commitment, character that it takes. You know, every year we have our enshrinement ceremony, and last year we had 3 very special guests to us. And I don't know what these guys were like when they were in high school and your age, but I know what they're like now. Each one of them is the recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor, the highest decoration for valor in our country. They understand what it means to be on a team. They understand what it is to have a purpose. They understand what it is to have an impact. The gentleman on your left is a guy named Leroy Petrie, happens to be a Dallas Cowboy fan. He was in Fallujah. He had been shot in both legs. He was leaning up against a wall as 3 of his teammates were firing in a triangle against about 25 of the enemy. A grenade comes into the middle, and Leroy uses the only thing he had, which was his elbows, and he crawls on his elbow over in the grenade, he grabs the grenade and he throws it away, but not before it severs his right hand. Where do people like that come from? How are people like that made? The next guy is a guy named Clinton Romesha. He was a sergeant as well. He was with 51 guys that were attacked by 350 of the enemy that had the highest ground. And the 2 officers ahead of him were killed almost immediately, along with 6 other guys. And for 13 hours, he defended this base with what was really 43 guys, 31 of whom were wounded in this battle. At one point, they got chased out of their base, their compound. And I don't know about you, but I would be heading for home at that point if I could. And they went back and took it back from these guys. It was like 10 to 1. Who makes a person like that? Where do you find guys like that? The next one is this guy. He's an older gentleman. He's the last surviving Medal of Honor recipient from World War II. His name is Woody Williams. On a place called Iwo Jima, guys would put on their back a gasoline tank and use it as a flamethrower to knock out machine gun nests. 21 times he went back and forth to get a new gasoline tank on his back. Here's something interesting about Woody Williams. 3 times he tried to sign up for the Marines, and 3 times they told him no. The 4th time, it was in 1943, where we were running out of troops. And they said, "Okay, we know you're too short, but we need you now." And he ends up being the greatest Marine in the history of the Corps. Who makes guys like this? Where do you find people like this? Who in the moment of crises show courage, show purpose, show compassion and love for the people that are next to them. You know, one more. It's not just men. You know, our Hall of Famers took a trip to Israel. This young lady, whose name I don't know, but I'll tell you, I was enormously impressed by her, is a 22-year-old pilot in the Israeli Air Force. She's an F-18 fighter pilot. She told me that she could go from being asleep in her bed to 15,000 feet in 3 minutes. And the reason is because in Israel, it's not like the United States. We don't have these two big oceans that protect us. In Israel, you can get from east to west across the country in a fighter jet in 2 minutes. So you better be quick if you're going to be attacked. We asked her, why are you doing this? Why have you chosen this duty in life? And she said, because it's so important that I have to be the one to make sure it's done right. That's what this is all about. That's what it is to have one purpose, to have one impact. That's what it is to have a Hall of Fame life. You don't have to be a football player to have a Hall of Fame life. You can make a difference, and I know you will. God bless. Thank you.